Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and a warm welcome to our very first webinar of 2025. We are absolutely thrilled to kick off the year with you and share some brand new ClickShare developments. My product colleagues will dive into the details and also respond to any questions you might have. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window at any point during the webinar, and they will answer in due time. So, what's on the agenda today? We have a brand new feature that will bridge the gap between remote and in-room participants, more interactivity for rooms with a touch screen, refined settings for the video bar, exciting info about ClickShare and Microsoft Shared Spaces, and much, much more. So without further ado, I will hand over to Elizabeth, our product manager for the end user experience. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Catalina, and hello, everyone. Well, I could explain things, but of course, stronger than words is a nice video. So I'll ask my colleague to maybe start the video before I start explaining what I would like to talk about today.
Isn't it annoying that when someone's addressing you, they're looking somewhere else entirely?
Or when you can hear someone, but you've got no idea who's actually talking?
Or when they're illustrating something in the room, which at home you can't see? ClickShare now solves all that with Smart Focus, an AI-based feature that switches the view based on how the people in the room interact. So, if I turn away from you and start talking to Sarah, Smart Focus switches the camera automatically to give you the best view.
And if I want to address you, all I need to do is look at my laptop and talk. Smart Focus will switch the camera and you will get this face-to-face view, because this is what's most important for you to see.
Exactly, like I'm doing now, talking to you. But if I get up and start drawing on the whiteboard, Smart Focus detects it and changes the view again, so you see exactly what I'm drawing and not miss any relevant details.
It's not just about video, sound is equally important. Even though everyone's microphones are switched on, there's no echo.
True, and what's more, after the meeting, you'll get an accurate transcript assigned to the right participants, so you know exactly who said what and what the next steps are.
So without adding hardware, Smart Focus bridges the distance between remote and in-room participants. No matter your location, with Smart Focus, you can capture every angle of the conversation.
All right, very exciting video, and I'll explain something more to you about what you just saw. So indeed, we with ClickShare have been trying very hard to improve the meeting experience, not only for the people in the meeting room, but also in hybrid meetings for those who are dialing in remotely. So we are making use actually of an AI-based feature that leverages on additional cameras, but not additional hardware necessary, to use those cameras and give more context to people remote in those hybrid meetings, so that they can feel equally involved in those hybrid meetings. But how does it work exactly? So we are using the cameras that people are bringing into the meeting rooms, the laptop cameras, based on how you behave in the meeting, what you are addressing, who you are addressing, or who you're talking to. It will intelligently switch between your laptop camera or the camera that is available in the room, so that remote participants can have a more dynamic view on what's happening in the meeting rooms and better understand the context of that meeting. But that's not all. We're also doing something related to audio. So as you are all connected to the same audio system in the room by connecting to ClickShare, for the remote participants, everyone who is talking in that room has the same audio quality on the other end for those remote participants. And that's not all. We can also detect who is talking. And as a result, we will always have the correct highlighting, for example, of the person that is talking. And additionally, the transcripts of that meeting will also be correctly assigned to the right person. So we have been testing this very thoroughly, but with a bunch of end users, partners, customers, and we have been collaborating with them to enhance the experience of the switching. And we also got a lot of valuable feedback on the mechanism. And here, for example, we gathered a quote from one of the partners that we've worked with, and it was really clear for them that this feature is really dynamic, creates the different scenes for them. They really appreciate the clear visual cues so that they better understand in a meeting who is speaking and who they're addressing, and it enhances the experience for the remote participants. So it's very refreshing. So now we finally have this feature available for you currently in a private beta. So we will provide this information to you after the webinar, so you can find and download the private beta version yourself. Make sure to download the latest firmware update and the dedicated beta application to be able to use this feature, and follow the instructions that are also included in the package. Then on to the next topic. Interactivity, and interactivity especially related to touch, to the touch functionality or touch displays. So for those meeting rooms with a touch screen that is linked to a ClickShare CX30 or CX50 Gen 1 or Gen 2, we have optimized the memory usage, and this results in a better performance of those touch interactivity features. So that means that from now on you will have an even smoother experience. It will be more dynamic, and we've reduced the latency, resulting in an improved responsiveness. But that's not all. For touch, we are also supporting multi-touch, and this up to 10 simultaneous touch points. So as already mentioned, this is available for the ClickShare CX30, CX50, Generation 1 and Generation 2, and it also requires the desktop app version 4.42 or up to work. So from now on, you will also be able to pinch, for example, to zoom in or to zoom out. You can scroll on your touch display, do right clicks. So this really enhances your collaboration and your interaction, for example, with apps like Miro in your meetings. A third topic I would like to talk about is dual sharing. This is something we also discussed in the previous webinar. So this is a feature that allows an end user to present two pieces of content from one device, so from one computer. For example, you are in a meeting, you are presenting a PowerPoint, and there's a couple of numbers on there, and all of a sudden someone asks, hey, where do those numbers come from? Then you can, next to your PowerPoint, also open up an Excel to show where those numbers come from. And this is working in dual display setups today, together with supporting base units. And these are the ClickShare 650 Gen 2 and the ClickShare Bar Pro. But from now on, so previously you needed to have the application installed, and we still motivate you to deploy the application on the devices. But in case you have, for example, a guest visiting, if you have your firmware up to date and updated your buttons, this will now also be available from the button application. So you no longer need to have the app installed to make use of dual sharing of this feature. And last but not least, I think everyone has seen and heard this so many times by now, but it's really time to make the move to the new ClickShare application. We can see from data that most of you have already switched to the new interface. So the new interface is now the default for the new installs, and will be pushed to all existing installs. But it's also the default for the button app. So make sure that you have your firmware up to date so that you can also enjoy the new interface when using the button. And also, of course, stay up to date with our exciting new features that are to come, because soon the old app interface will be entirely phased out. All right, I think that's it from an end user perspective. Now I'll pass on the floor to Peter.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and welcome everyone. Before I dive into what's new for the IT admin in this release, I wanted to encourage all the IT admins to upgrade to this latest winter release to make sure that you can profit not only from the enhancements we're talking about today, but you're also benefiting from all the improvements we have done in the past, as we had at the end of the year a security release that we brought out. If you upgrade to the latest, you're also benefiting from that. And then what's new for the IT admin? First, I talked about upgrade to the latest release. Something that can help you in XMS Cloud now to do that is location-based scheduling. You could already schedule jobs to upgrade firmwares and to do device reboots. And you could do that based on selecting one or more base units to schedule such a job. From this winter release on, you can also now pick locations from the location tree. That will enable you, after making a configuration with a location, that each time that job gets triggered, it will select the base units that are currently in that location. So if you're adding new base units to that location, they will be included in the job. Likewise, if you then remove them. Then this release, we're building further on what we announced the previous release about the firmware compatibility status of the Jabra devices. In this beta program, we have already talked about the fact that with the Jabra devices, you can see which firmware is installed on the Jabra device that's connected to your ClickShare. And it is also indicated whether or not you're using the recommended version that has been tested in our Alliance program. With this winter release, we take a step further, which actually is going to help you when you execute the firmware update to the latest ClickShare firmware, that if you would have a firmware still running on your Jabra device, from which we know that it will cause incompatibility issues, we're going to refrain from pushing that update and then actually giving feedback to you in XMS Cloud on why this install didn't came true. So, for example, you're using our new feature of location-based scheduling, and you triggered a firmware update on a location, but in that location there are base units connected to a Jabra device that still has, you could say, an older firmware which is not compatible anymore. You will then actually afterwards have a warning in XMS Cloud, and you can inspect that to see which room you actually need to visit to make sure that the Jabra peripheral is being updated, and then afterwards you can re-execute the job to make sure that then also the ClickShare firmware is updated. Then next, I want to update you on new functionalities for the ClickShare Bar Pro. We're adding more settings on wired room dock and the screensaver mode. First of all, on the wired room dock. So what is the wired room dock? Enables you to actually have high resolution sharing and using the AV peripherals using a wired connection. And we are giving you the ability to actually switch between that mode and then also the mode where you purely are using it to share the screen. So the first setting that you can choose is wired room dock. That enables you with the cable to do and the audio video and to have access to the screen, or you can choose to just do a display port over USB. Then you get access to the room display, but not the peripherals. You could also choose to disable this functionality by putting it off. Then the second one on the screensaver. You have some settings now on the screensaver that enable you to turn it on and select at which timeout or idle time you actually want the screensaver to pop up. And then you can select what you actually want to visualize. We have a default screensaver available for you that will show, you could say, the default with the Barco logo. But you can also choose to have, you can say, the display port over USB, meaning that you can have a source that comes in over USB to show them when the device is not being used as a screensaver, which could be, for example, the output of a signage player. Then, an important notice in the upcoming release for XMS Edge. Currently, we have the XMS Edge release 2.15. We are about to release the 2.16, but there is an important notice with that, is that from the release 2.16 onwards, it's going to be necessary that your virtualization environment supports AVX, that's Advanced Vector Extensions. To make sure that your virtualization supports this, there is a link here on the slide that you can follow with a knowledge-based article telling you how you can actually make sure that AVX support is enabled, how you can check it, and if it's not enabled yet, how to enable it. Please make sure that you enable this before installing the update. Otherwise, you will render your setup of XMS Edge useless. It will break. Even though after you have checked that AVX support is enabled, make sure that you make a copy of or a backup of your virtual machine before executing the update. And with that, I want to hand it over to Gauthier, who's going to give you an update on ClickShare and Microsoft Shared Spaces.
Thank you so much, Peter, for your input and for sharing these latest updates for the IT admin. As a last part of this webinar, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Shared Spaces initiatives, because there's been quite some interesting and exciting updates in that area. Now, to recap a little bit, what is the Shared Spaces or the Shared Spaces initiative? Is basically Microsoft who's looking at meeting rooms, and where in the past everything was around Teams room systems. Now they're more and more also looking at basically BYOD rooms or BYOD setups, which they call shared spaces. Now, as they are developing this initiative, obviously they are reaching out to industry leaders such as Barco ClickShare, and we are working together with them to optimize and further optimize the experience for both the IT admin and the end user. What does this mean? Well, for a business owner, either you or your customers, this means that you have a guarantee that your setup will be supported and will receive the best experience and support from both Barco and Microsoft Teams. For IT admins, it allows them to get more insights into what happens in the room. You'll get access to call quality information, but also further occupancy information of the rooms, and to see how these rooms are actually used from a Teams client's perspective. For the end user, both Microsoft and ClickShare are working together to look at where there's still areas of frictions, and both parties are working towards improving the overall user experience in a meeting room. Now, why does this matter? The user experience of the ClickShare or the Teams client is already pretty good, and that is very true, especially for an individual call. When the Teams client is used by a single person, a lot of very important and very capable features have been added to the Teams client to, for example, blur your background, give you the selection of peripherals, but also to enable voice isolation, to basically remove all of these distracting voices surrounding you in your call. All of these features are amazing, but they are hampering the experience in the room system itself. And this is why this Teams BYOD initiative within the Shared Spaces initiative is very important and something that we're working on with the Teams team. Now, what does this mean? Well, basically, when you press or when you enter or plug in a ClickShare button into your PC, the Teams client will recognize that device, will link it to a unique meeting room in the Pro Portal, and will be able to collect data linked to that device or basically this room. At the same time, the Teams client will recognize that it's in a room environment and will go and optimize the user experience for those in the room. It does so by selecting the right peripherals, making sure you're always using the room speakerphone when you're in a room context. It will disable certain features such as voice isolation, and in terms of speaker attribution, notes, annotation, transcription, it will be able to link the right voice to the right participant inside of this room. Now, let's look into what this actually means. Now, this you will recognize as the pre-join screen. And there you will already see that when you press or when you plug in a ClickShare button into your PC before joining the call, the pre-join screen will recognize this device and will be smart enough to recognize that this is basically a call which is hosted in a meeting room. So it will change the audio from the computer audio to the room audio, and it will automatically select the room speakerphone that is attached to your ClickShare system. At the same time, if this room has been configured in the Pro Portal, you will see that the correct meeting room will be propagated to the pre-join screen, which makes it a lot more convenient and friendly for the end user to know that the right thing is being done. In the next point, you will join the call by pressing the join call, and then you will see that in your Teams client, a couple of adaptations or settings have been done. For example, something that has been released for a couple of weeks now already is that when you join that call with a ClickShare system, all the participants inside the room will be identified and will be classified under that meeting room. If the meeting room is populated or configured in the Pro Portal, the correct meeting room will also be shown in the list. At the same time, when you're using this feature, voice isolation will be turned off so that everybody in the meeting room will be correctly heard and understood by the remote participants. So we'll start the call and it will automatically disable this feature. And then something we're very excited about and which is rolling out to all PCs or all Teams clients as we speak is that when the host has a Teams premium license or a Copilot license, speaker attribution and correct speaker identification in the transcription will happen automatically when you join from your personal Teams client in the meeting room. So this is a very excited advancement feature that will now be enabled and that is available to everybody using ClickShare systems as well. Now, this all sounds awesome. Question now, of course, is how do you enable all of this? Well, most of these things will work if you have either the Teams Premium or Copilot license, especially for the speaker identification and attribution. For all the other goodies, it's often enough to just use ClickShare together with a Teams client. If you want the data, but also the meeting room propagation to the Teams client, then you need to organize your ClickShare systems into meeting rooms and assign them to resource accounts in the Pro Portal. How you can do this is very, very easy. Now, there is first and foremost a setting to be set in the units, either through the Web UI or XMS, is to have a unique USB identifier which is linked to the meeting room. By default, ClickShare buttons have a unique USB identifier, which means that only one device will pop up in your Pro Portal. Once you've set this unique identifier and you've given it the time to either propagate automatically or you've done it manually by repairing the buttons, you can go to XMS Cloud, get an export of all the buttons in the Settings Clients tab, and download an Excel file that you can then upload into the Pro Portal, and you will see that all of the devices will automatically be populated in the Pro Portal. Together with the list of devices, you will have friendly names to the devices or to the meeting rooms, which makes it very easy to then link these devices, link these ClickShare units towards the right meeting room in your system. If you want to know more, you will find a knowledge base article in the link in the slides, and don't hesitate to reach out to your Barco contact if you would like more information or if you need help with anything. That concludes my part. Thank you all for joining. I will now give the word back to Catalina, who will wrap things up.
Yep. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We truly appreciate you taking the time. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the Q&A box. We will stay on the line for a few more minutes to answer whatever you'd like to ask. And we'll make sure to send the recording and the slides early next week so you can check them out. And otherwise, stay tuned for our next product update session in April. And until then, have a nice rest of the day. Thank you.